Huddersfield Town used to be the perennial underachievers, never quite been as competitive as they'd like throughout their more recent history. It has been over 100 years since they first won the First Division under Herbert Chapman, and they went on to become the first side to win it 3 times in a row. Amazingly, under the stewardship of Gareth Marsden, they achieved it once again. A player who has been a small part of that success on the pitch is a much admired fan favourite, local lad and supporter of it. Recently retired striker Danny Hardwick joins us here on 5 Live to talk us through the Terriers' rise to the top once again. Danny, welcome. How are you?
Hi Johnny, I'm not too bad, thanks. Yourself?
Very well. Right, let's start off with the most recent news. At 32, it can seem quite a young age to retire from football, but you have an unfortunately valid reason for it.
Yeah, it was an injury. The old knee injury has caught up with me at last. I've had it since I was about 11, 12 years old, and very successful surgeries at the time, as I was going through my early career, allow me to play at the level that I have. But I haven't been able to train as much in the last 2 years as I need to perform at the level that Huddersfield are at, and even a lower level now. So it was a case of me either dropping down quite drastically and reducing the amount of time that I train and play, or retiring.
And you now work with the under-18s at Huddersfield. Have you got any plans to go into management someday?
Yeah, I think that is the ultimate aim for me. I've started out doing my coaching badges, and obviously I'm now working with under-18s, and I love it. I love passing on what I've learned through my career, through various coaches and managers, and my experience at a pretty high level, and passing on particularly in terms of working with Huddersfield Town, that identity and the philosophy that the club is recognised for, both by its own fans and by neutrals as well.
Let's talk about last season, fresh as it is in our memories. Huddersfield started the season well, a new forward in fine form, then suddenly after Christmas, everything seems to just fall away somewhat.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We brought in Imbriel and Bolo to play a different sort of formation, and we've been used to a certain setup and playing with the likes of Andre Silva as the forward with someone in behind him, and it slightly changed that. And I think we got found out quicker than we had in the previous formation, and that affected us in that new year, not being able to have a plan B, have a plan C, and change that. I think Brill had a great season. I think he's a brilliant acquisition for the club, but it didn't quite work for Huddersfield's identity at that time, and it affected our results right up until the last day.
Was that a disappointing way to end your final season as a player?
Yes and no. No, because I look back at my career at the point I retired with great pride, that I was able to play professional football, play for my hometown club, and play for my country as well. Yes, because obviously the expectations that we as a team set ourselves, we didn't achieve, and we fell short of our own objectives and our own aims and goals for the season.
This season, however, has started positively. 3 new signings, all of them free transfers representing good business for the club, all essentially central midfielders. 2 have played for the club before, one of which you're particularly close to.
Yes, Mr. Luke Nicholson, I've known for a good 15 years. I've played with him since we were in the academy, and we've lived together in various points of our careers. To have him back is fantastic on a personal level, but for the team as well, he's brought experience of playing at another club with different players, and he still has the same quality, if not more, than he did when he left us. Naby Keita as well. He was instrumental in the season that we won the Premier League and the Champions League. I think it was 36 goals and assists in 50 appearances. It was immense, and obviously he moved for big money to Man City. He's gone out of contract and he's come back to Huddersfield. And Marco Verratti is someone that their manager knows from his time as Italy manager, a world-class midfielder. I don't know him on a personal level, but I am aware of him and his qualities that he brings to the side, and that can only benefit the team.
And you signed for Huddersfield back in 2017 on a pre-contract agreement. So I guess the intention was to be championship players. Did this put more pressure on you both, having joined them as they started life in the Premier League?
Absolutely, yeah. It was challenging for both of us, I think, um, with the idea of joining a championship club and testing ourselves against a higher level of opposition. Um, to be then joining that same club in the Premier League, and they're just trying to sign players left and right. It's a new manager. We have to gel within this group of players, and you're kind of thinking, do I fit in here? Do I need to go out on loan? And those questions were brought up, but we both ultimately decided to stay at the club and to stay and fight for our places. I think Luke did it a lot better than me in the first couple of seasons. Um, but yeah, it was a challenge.
Did it feel a little frustrating that you couldn't hit the ground running at that level?
I think at any level, if you're brought in as a striker and you don't score goals and you don't put in the performances to justify paying any amount of money, you sort of kick yourself a little bit. And I lost a lot of confidence in the first couple of weeks, not being able to do that for Huddersfield.
David Wagner got Huddersfield promoted, playing a very distinct style of football, and he signed you and Luke Nicholson to play in that system. Wagner goes to Hamburg, Marsden comes in. His philosophy slightly different, or
Yeah, I'd say so. David wanted to play the gegenpressing, counter-attacking football that had obviously worked in the Championship for the 2-1 wins, the 1-0 wins, and you can't do that in the Premier League against some of the opposition that you come up against. Gordon realised that he needed a target man, someone to create a nuisance up front, as many other managers and teams had done in the past, and that was Steve Mounier. That wasn't me, and I think as a team we struggled for a long way to find that identity, but we eventually got there just in time.
that first season, as you mentioned, was fairly difficult. Lots of new players trying to gel quickly. It was a close thing to being relegated that year. What happened in the summer to turn you to a side that went on to qualify for Europe?
I think it's a mix of a couple of things. Obviously, Gordon Marsden wanted us to play a certain way, and we bought into that. We bought into it in a big way. I think we overachieved in terms of our expectations in the second season. But I also think we were very shrewd in the players that we signed. Andre Silva, I mean, for the price that we paid for him, he's repaid that 10 times over.
Andre Silva, you mentioned there, he surpassed 100 Huddersfield goals recently. Where does he rank among the town legends of years gone by?
For for the younger generation, I can't see him not being in anyone's top three, if not number one. Perhaps the older generation have got a couple more. The likes of Frank Worthington and Dennis Law. But what he's achieved on a personal note, aside from the fact of the success that he's brought this club, is phenomenal. And he's obviously gone on to some international success as well for his country. But just to score the amount of goals he has in the Premier League, let alone just for Huddersfield, is incredible.
Now, with Martinez, Embolo, and a new striker, Dominic Fox, does Silva have that same importance that he once had?
I don't think it's a case of importance. Obviously, he was the focal point of those earlier sides where he was the star man, and now he's surrounded by star men, which can only benefit him as a player because he's going to get more quality chances, and he's got players around him that he can pass to, and they're going to finish. And as a team, what more do you want than having four world class strikers that you can interchange if one gets injured, suspended, or want to change a different formation for a certain type of opponent? But his importance is still the same. He's still gonna score those goals, and he still will.
Now, you scored 7 goals in your career. Which one was your favourite?
Leeds.
No surprises there.
I mean, scoring against anyone is fabulous. Scoring in an important cup game, whether it be to get through to the next round or the final, is amazing. But Leeds.
For a period during the 2020 season, you were a right back covering for Trent
Mhm.
Alexander Arnold. What was that like for a player to go from leading the line, being the focal point of attack, to stopping the legs of Marcus Rashford and Aubameyang?
It was a drastic change, but it was about the manager believing that I could go out there and do a job in that position, and I felt that I did that. 9 times out of 10. when you come up against opposition like that, like Rashford and Aubameyang, of course they're fantastic players. You know, they've got a turn of pace that I can't compete with. So you have to sort of adapt to the players that you come up against. But I enjoyed the challenge, to be fair.
There was talk of apparent pressure from the board on Marsden last season, and they'd maybe sacked given the performances and results in the latter stage of the campaign. How much of that are you aware of as a player, both the pressure from up top and the scrutiny from the media and the fans?
I think you're aware of it in all three areas, um, but I sort of knew what was going on as I was having quite an honest conversation with Gordon at the time, and he knew his job might be up. So wherever he was going to go, he said that he wanted me to go with him.
You had talks about signing for him, whichever club it had gone to.
Yeah, in whatever capacity that was, as a player or as a coach as I am now. He saw something in me. He liked the relationship we had, and he wanted to continue that.
I see. So it was always in his mind that he wanted you as a part of his backroom staff moving forwards, wherever that was.
Yeah, he let me know early on that when I retired and I wanted to go into coaching, that he wanted me as part of his backroom staff.
Now, you've had plenty of interviews over the years, some of which you've gotten in a bit of bother over.
Yeah, probably said a little bit more than I should at times.
A lot of it was your opinion on those matters, surely.
Of course, I mean, I don't think I ever said anything that was not already out in the public domain. I just offered my opinion on the way that things were going at the time.
Did you ever feel that you overstepped the line yourself?
No, I think I've always been honest. I think whether that's a problem or not is for other people to decide, but I was always honest with my opinion on the club that I've supported since I was as a child, and it's just happens to be that I'm inside that club and I obviously represent it as well. So yeah, I was being honest at the time when I was speaking about transfers or how the club was playing, but I felt I was well in my right to.
Managers are often asked about players they're linked with, and more often than not, they prefer not to speak about other teams as players or something around those lines. Ezekiel Barco was constantly in talks with Huddersfield, but it seemed like the clubs and player couldn't agree on the finer points of the move. It was well over a year before he signed in a deal which included Kai Havertz. You were quite vocal about that transfer. Did Huddersfield reprimand you because you leaked anything in particular?
Yes, I was reminded of my responsibilities at the time, but to be honest, I was just speaking about the player in terms of how much I admired him and how much I would love to play with him, and not how the transfer was going.
Do you think that affected the deal in any way, having that information in the public domain?
I cannot see how it would have done. I think the problems they had with the transfer were down to fee and down to personal terms between the player and the club.
Going back to your own playing career, most of which were spent at Huddersfield, you had many opportunities to leave the club and join a team in a championship where you could get more minutes. Was it a case of sticking to your guns, or you just thought, no, this is my level?
I think a mix of the both. I'd say that I was speaking to Preston and Sheffield United about game time, but my heart was always with Huddersfield.
That being said, good players have left the club both to get more game time or because they just weren't happy with the role. Was that ever the case with you?
No, I mean I love playing for this team, but also the squad chemistry was and is fantastic, and I never really wanted to leave that.
That squad chemistry is often key to a successful season, whether that means hitting your objectives or not exceeding them. Is the 2019 team the one with confidence and chemistry in abundance?
Absolutely. I mean, it was a team full of superstars that just worked so well together.
It was just such a solid side. It only conceded 17 times and scored nearly
Yeah.
90 goals.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. It's one for the history books, not just for Huddersfield Town, but for the Premier League as well.
We've got a few questions in from our Twitter feed here. Mick Pork Pie Chapman, he asks, who was the worst person to room with on away days? And what was the best moment you were part of on the pitch?
Well, the worst person to room with is also the best. Mr. Luke Nicholson is a pain in my arse and everyone else's, but I wouldn't have it any other way. We've been there since the start. The best moment for me, there's an embarrassment of riches, but I'd say it's the first time we won that Premier League. that was unforgettable.
Another here from Danny Pinhead Roberts. Who was your most difficult opponent as a player and as a team? Surely that's Man City.
Thought so, but it's not. Stoke City was the team that we could never seem to dominate or even get a result against in some cases. Any team that came up against us that was really physical sort of hampered the likes of Andre Silva, Kai Havertz, and myself. So I'd say Stoke City and Stoke City's defence.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Danny. All the best in your new coaching role, and maybe we will see you in charge of Huddersfield one day.
Yeah, thank you very much. We shall see.